Hi there, YouTube. Today's Kingdom song is an oldie, but not a golden oldie. It's a lousy song, but not as bad as some of the others because it's really short. Seriously, it's 8 bars long. 8 bars. Of course, they repeat the same 8 bars over and over and over and over, but you can't please all the people all the time, can you? This song was number 5 in 1966, number 28 in 1984, number 20 in 2009, and number 93 in the 2017 songbook. It's called Bless Our Meeting Together. Because I guess meeting separately is out of the question? I don't know. It does have all of the hallmarks of a Jehovah's Witness song. Absurdly high notes? Check. Obnoxious, unnecessary apostrophes? Check. Incredibly silly lyrics and subject matter? Check. Hideous abusive grammar? You betcha. And for bonus points, this song too has been turned into a rather noxious children's cartoon. Don't worry, I'll let you see it. Let's go. 1984, verse 1. Bless us as we meet together, great Jehovah, we now pray. For our meetings we do thank you, may your spirit with us stay. You know, in all my time as a Jehovah's Witness, I can't think of anyone at all who would have sincerely uttered these words. I mean, even without the backwards-ass grammar. I mean, I can see asking God for His Spirit if you actually believe in that sort of thing, but I draw the line at thanks for the meetings. Because meetings were utter hell for me as a kid. For starters, with completely untreated ADD, the worst thing that you can ever be forced to do is sit still and quietly for hours on end listening to something that you either don't really understand or don't particularly care about. Or something that's way, 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 way over your head. And no toddler or child cares about the prophecy of Daniel or special needs talk about straight skirts or internet porn or masturbation or whatever the flavor of the week is. Speaking of which, random thought here. Do you ever notice how the witnesses are really way more explicit about certain things than they need to be? They would give you ideas about how to sin while condemning the certain sin. They do still do this, I think. If you just look up the Pillowgate videos, you can find a shining example of this behavior. So, masturbation is the best example that you can think of. Of course, they think that masturbation is the worst thing you can do and you really shouldn't do it, right? But instead of saying, guys, this is bad behavior, let's not do it, they say things like, well, brothers, if you put on silky underwear and watch some porn and then hump your pillow, that's bad. I mean, oh my God, did they have to be so revoltingly specific? Like, couldn't they just say, don't choke your chicken and be done with it? Clearly not. Anyway, I've digressed. Strayed from the point just a bit. The original 1966 version of this verse was slightly different. It said, bless us as we meet for worship. Great Jehovah, we now pray. For this place we give thanksgiving, love within our hearts and still. First of all, where's the rhyming structure? That's just weird. The difference here between the 66 and the 84 version is that we are specifying worship in 1966 as the purpose for the meetings. Now, worship is defined as the feeling or expression of reverence and adoration for a deity. What we did at the meetings, though, doesn't actually fit this definition of worship. I mean, outside of singing lyrics like, Great Jehovah, we now pray, there wasn't much adoration or reverence at all, really. And there weren't any feelings either, as I recall. Just a lot of repetition. A lot of mind-numbing, cardboard, expressionless talking. Another difference between 1966 and 1984 is the reference to place, which I assume refers to kingdom halls, and the word thanksgiving. And you know they had to get rid of that because Jehovah's Witnesses cannot abide using any word that might make people think of worldly holidays or anything. Anyway, in 2009, the lyrics stayed the same in the first verse, but in 2017, they changed Great Jehovah to O Jehovah. Now, I wonder what Jehovah did that made him not so great anymore between those years? Well, they fixed the grammar in one line, so instead of for our meetings we do thank you, it now says we are thankful for our meetings. I mean, it's still a damn lie, but at least the grammar's correct. You know what I used to be thankful for? I was actually thankful when it snowed and they canceled the meeting. That was awesome. But thankful for the opportunity to sit there and be bored to death, or to be dragged kicking and screaming to the bathroom where I'd be spanked, sometimes with a belt, sometimes with a switch, sometimes with a bare hand, and then led shuddering, sniffling back to my seat with everybody staring at me, either like I'd committed some horrible sin, or else smiling like they thought it was just the greatest thing in the world, that I'd just been beaten within an inch of my life. And what transgression earned this punishment at the meetings, you might ask? It could be literally anything. Fidgeting during the meeting, taking my shoes off, making any kind of noise, dropping my book, crying or saying ouch when my sister dug her nails into my arm. You know, horrible, horrible things.
Our spiritual need, we're conscious. With your word, please do us fill. Train our minds and tongues to witness. Love within our hearts sing still.
Well, it wouldn't be a kingdom song without a superfluous apostrophe, would it? But you know, I don't think we'd have been conscious of a spiritual need at all if we hadn't had it beaten into us how lacking we were. Also, I find it somewhat ironic to sing about how conscious we are when in fact this song renders a person semi-comatose even as you're trying to sing it. Doesn't it? Ugh. By singing these words, it seems like we're asking to be brainwashed. I mean, this is just an admission that we as Jehovah's Witnesses have been hollowed out so that we can be filled with watchtower words. I mean, a request that our minds be trained to witness, not to understand, not to worship, not to do good in the world. No, to witness, which is a loaded word that signifies acting as a dedicated salesperson for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. The real world definition of the word witness is not what they mean here, right? They're talking about preaching. Also, they repurposed the last line of the first verse from 1966, that being love within our hearts and still, because having love in your heart is something that happens by divine intervention only, apparently, with the witnesses. It's a concept that keeps being repeated in these songs. This verse is just so uber culty. And it only gets worse over time. So here's the 2009 version.
Help us, Lord, refine our worship. With your word, all do us fill. Train our minds and tongues to witness. Love within our hearts instill.
Has anybody got a bucket? Seriously, I think I'm going to puke. This is absolutely revolting. Seriously, do you know of any child who would be disappointed that their parents were too sick to take them to the Kingdom Hall? Any child at all who wouldn't rejoice at the thought of staying in their play clothes and doing something fun for a change? Furthermore, do you know of anyone at all in the congregation who would have been willing to pick that kid up and take them to the meetings on the spur of the moment like that? I don't. Did you know any sane adult who would have called in to listen to the meeting when they were too sick to attend in person? Now, I know that there are people who call in when they have an extended illness and they can't go to the meetings for a long time. I know that. But this is just completely unbelievable. It is unrealistic. Speaking of unrealistic, why do all the people in these videos have dead eyes? Let's go on to 1984, verse 3.
Yes, this meeting is for worship. Holiness is what we seek. We desire to know you better and keep ever humble me.
This verse is another example of the weird, clunky language the witnesses love so much. And the sort of pseudo-hidden alternate meanings that they also love to throw in. We desire to know you better is really sort of creepy sounding, and not at all the type of reverent sentiment that you really think they would be directing toward a God that they supposedly worship. And keep ever humble meek is just a thinly veiled warning not to think too much of yourself or indulge in independent thinking. Ooh, you'd certainly better not ever question what you're told at the meetings. Now, verse 3 in 1966 makes me giggle just a little bit. It went like this. As we meet in sweet assembly, help us righteousness to seek. May we get to know you better and keep ever humble meek. Sweet assembly? What? That's just bizarre. I mean, it sounds like a random text generator wrote this or something. I also wonder what happened between 66 and 84 that caused them to stop seeking righteousness and go after holiness instead. And I think the 1966 version of the request to know you better is vastly superior to the 1984 version, the lyrical legalese that they tossed in there. We desire to know you better. Whatever. Now, in 2009, this entire verse was deleted, and what was verse 4 in 1984 became verse 3. So, verse 4, 1984.
So dear Father, bless our meetings, grant us peace and unity. For our part, we want to serve you, magnify your sovereignty.
Okay, why do they have to say for our part? Our part of what? They could have just said, we want to serve you, and gotten the point across just fine. Did they need to have some filler syllables in there? I don't know. They could have done lots of things. They could say something nice about God, glorious Jah, or mighty God, or something else with 3 syllables. It's not hard. Instead, we've got for our part, which doesn't mean anything. Then there's the idea of magnifying sovereignty with superfluous apostrophes, apparently. So typically when you magnify something, it's because it's really, really small, right? You need to make it bigger to be able to see it. Why does the sovereignty of the almighty creator of the universe need to be magnified? Now, the dictionary definition of magnify is to make something appear larger than it is, especially with a lens or microscope. Now, I repeat, why would Jehovah's sovereignty need to appear larger than it actually is? How would it even be possible if any of what they teach is true? And why does this make me think of the great and powerful Oz? I mean, if your sovereignty needs magnifying, Jehovah, then it isn't all that great to start with, is it? In 1966, the 4th verse was just a little bit different from this. It said, we would share our sacred knowledge, work in peace and unity, and by faithful kingdom service magnify your sovereignty. Now, does anybody else think this wording is a little weird? We would share our sacred knowledge and work in peace and unity, but... See, I keep waiting for the but here's why we won't, the way that's worded. I said in 2009, this was actually verse 3 and the final verse of the song. How these kids are all doing very culty Jehovah's Witness things? Cleaning the Kingdom Hall is the most fun and amazing privilege. No, it's not. It sucked as a kid. I hated it. No kid likes to clean, whether it's their room or their classroom or their church. It's not fun. It's not a privilege. It's a chore. A necessary chore, true, but let's call it what it is. In 2017, Dear Father became Loving Father, both of which sounds like something you'd hear in North Korea. You know, I think it was Christopher Hitchens who compared Christianity to a celestial North Korea. which is so true that it kind of makes me laugh every time I think about it. Yep, I'm over it.